Darlene here at Petal Academy to our Easy Sunday Blooms edition, live up here at our cottage this morning. And we're going to be doing a mimosa wreath, so welcome everybody. Like always, grab a beverage if you're going to watch with us or watch me do this and you have any questions. I've got a coffee here on the go. Rob's behind the camera, so if you have any questions you can chime in and ask away, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. So mimosa is a great one for this week because it's International Women's Day on, I think, Friday or Saturday. It's March 8th. And mimosa is a favorite. It's an interesting flower. We often get it imported from Italy, and it smells amazing. So that's what it looks like. It's like these little tiny balls. A lot of you probably thought I was going to make a champagne and orange juice cocktail this morning, but no, it's actually a flower. And it's got it's in the acacia family, and it's got these little balls on the ends of it that sort of burst into this really beautiful yellow, quite pollinated bloom. And just language of flowers, I looked it up this morning because I thought, oh, that would be a fun thing to share too. So language of flowers means femininity, strength, renewal, and sensitivity, which of course is pretty appropriate for International Women's Day. So oftentimes what is tradition, and it started kind of in Europe, but people will give it to the women in their lives for International Women's Day. And it's just a gorgeous flower, but it also dries incredibly well. So I have a couple of different varieties that I brought with me today. So I just actually found this one, and I have to say I have had these for a few days. Acacia is great. It can be fairly long lasting, but it dries as well. So oftentimes as a cut flower, you might get 3 days to sort of a week out of it, depending on where you have it stored. And then it dries actually quite beautifully. So I'm going to be using some of that. So this is a different variety though. This is kind of almost like a mini version that I came across at one of our suppliers this week. And I got it from Metz, which is gorgeous. I'll tag them in this video. And then traditionally this one here, this is a variety that I got from Hoffland's. It usually will open up and sort of be a little bit more bright yellow, but this one's kind of started to dry a little bit. But you can see the foliage as well. It's really, really pretty, really delicate. Different leaf on this variety here of the acacia. So acacia is also one of those plants, I think, one of the varieties, if you rub the leaves, it kind of closes up, which is kind of cool. But yeah, you can see the two different varieties there. Really kind of nice. So we're going to make a wreath with this. And I also brought with me a little bit of this one here, which is kind of fun. This one is broom, or sweet huck, we call it. Sweet huck, actually. So sweet huck branches. So I'm going to use a little bit of that as well, just to create some spring kind of flow from this wreath. And I'm working on just a little grapevine base that we had at the warehouse. I've got a pair of wire snips because I always recommend working with wire snips when you're making wreaths and working with wire because it saves your clippers. And then I've just got a really simple spool of about 28 gauge wire. So just like this that we're going to be using. So that's all you need. And then of course floral snips. We're going to get those ready. And off we go. So the first thing we're going to do is trim off some smaller sections of these branches to use them in a little bit better of a shape and a proportion to our wreath. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to cut just some smaller sections of this. And I'm just following down the main branch, and I'm making them just a little bit bigger than my hand, just so it's a little bit more manageable. I want to have these sort of spraying out the sides of my wreath a little bit here, just to kind of create a little bit of a line. See, they're so pretty, but just gives it that really nice spring look. So because mimosa dries, it makes kind of a perfect element to pop onto a nice early spring wreath. So, it can take it a little bit different. And then how nice is that for International Women's Day? So it's pretty good. We're up, like I said, at the cottage today. Right, Robbie?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm actually standing in our porch, which is usually not heated. A mistake that we made that we regretted probably, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we actually have a couple of heaters in here. It looks like it's heated because we have a lovely fireplace in the background, but it's actually not insulated. But we may tackle that project this year, kind of break right back into the walls and redo it. But anyway, where I'm standing is usually about 6 feet above the ground, right? Like the porch is,
Yes.
and the snow is actually all the way up to the windows where we are up here. So we're in Tiny Township, and it's definitely full of snow. So it's kind of nice. The kids are out playing it, making
Building an igloo.
they're building an igloo there, which will be fun. So you can see I took all that sweet huck and I kind of made a little bundle of branches, just like so. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the mimosa. I'm just going to cut it up into some smaller sections. Always when you're making a wreath, it's great. It's almost like, I compare it to like cooking. I say this a lot when I teach, is you want to cut these into smaller sections so that it's a lot easier to add into your wreath. Because if you're sort of just, grabbing little pieces and trimming them as you go, it takes the fun out of it a little bit. It's like gets more laborious, and you're really kind of, it takes a lot longer in my opinion as well. So I like to prep everything beforehand. So it's like chopping the vegetables before you start cooking, right? It just, when you're chopping them and you're trying to get everything together at the same time, it kind of makes it a little bit more of a challenge. So I like to do this ahead of time because it definitely preps it and gets it ready to go. And I'm just going to take my 2 different varieties. That's the only thing I'm really doing here. I'm going to put them in 2 different piles, for lack of a better description here. Kind of get those all situated so that I kind of have the different leaves and styles together. So what I'm using in total is probably about 3 bunches of sweet huck. I'm using about 2 bunches of the regular mimosa, or what I would define as regular mimosa. And I don't mean cocktail when I say that, just to be clear. And it's the flower. And I'm using one of the smaller varieties. And I should have grabbed the tag from that smaller variety to share the name of it, but I'll put that in the description as well so you guys can see that. And I would say it's definitely that smaller variety is something you probably need to pre-order from your suppliers, because me being in the industry for as long as I have, this is actually the first time I've ever seen that variety, this little mini one right here. So definitely I would pre-order that. And actually mimosa in general, you usually have to pre-order. It's usually something that's not too easy to come by. A lot of shops will carry it specifically this week for International Women's Day, but it is more of a thing that I would definitely, if you're after it specifically, I would pre-order it for sure. So we've got those all snipped up and ready to go. I'm gonna grab some coffee here. It's nice and bright in here though, eh? It's like,
yeah. The nice white really reflects off and brightens it up.
Yeah, it is. Good light in here. Better than at home, I think, right? When we're working at home, sometimes it's a little bit, I know last week when we did this, the light from the kitchen window was really bright. So I think it's a little easier here, hopefully for you guys to see. So again, like these ones are a little bit longer little pieces here, and you can see all these little shoots off that main branch. So I just take my snips and I just travel up the stem and create these little small pieces here that I'm going to be working with. And this is like probably like not the funnest part of making a wreath, but it's definitely saved the challenge later. So I think it's worth taking the time to do all these little trimmings ahead of time. And if you've ever tried making wreaths with like evergreens or anything like that, we did basically the same techniques that we follow when we trim up our evergreens. Same thing. Get a lot more mileage per stem when you kind of approach your materials in this fashion. So yeah, again, up the stem. And with this one, some of these little side shoots are pretty long, so I may have to trim them up a little bit further, all the way down. Yeah, so basically when I'm done, that's pretty much all I have left that I'm discarding. which is great. Yeah. Anybody got any questions out there, or everybody's good?
No, everyone seems to be good.
Good. Okay.
Pretty quiet group today.
Pretty quiet? Quiet on a Sunday morning? Yeah. That's what I find it's a good time to do these. It's like grab a coffee and just fun to kind of, for me too, it's getting creative. So for those of you who are just joining, this is we're thriving 2025, haha. And we're gonna be doing these little tutorials twice a week. So Wednesdays and Saturdays in our mission,
Sundays.
Or Sundays, of course. Yeah, that's right. Whoopsie.
It's Sunday today.
In a way to help you become more fearless with flowers is really what we want to give you some easy ideas. So most of the things that we'll be showing you are kind of easy to do at home or to try. And with this mimosa as well, like, just let's be clear, you could probably do this with like any filler flower. So baby's breath, caspia, so limonium, status, anything like that that's a filler flower, that dries is something that you could try to incorporate into this and make it work so that you would get sort of a similar result. So don't be shy if if you're like, mimosa, I've never heard of that, and you go into your local florist and they're like, well, we can't get that in. Just try another filler flower. It's really something fun to try, just with something in a different color, maybe even. One thing I did want to mention really quickly too is that mimosa usually starts to be available in, like, I would say late December, early January, and we're almost coming to the end of it here in Canada where we can get it. Or at least that's what my supplier told me last week. So just be aware of that. If you're thinking about this, you might want to think a couple weeks ahead from where we are right now. So that'd be like middle of February, and it should be great and in season. So I'm just going to take some of my mimosa. I'm going to start off my wreath, and I've just got, this is probably about an 8-inch base that I've got here that I'm working with. And I'm going to take my mimosa, I'm going to lay it on the wreath. I'm taking my spool wire, I'm unraveling it, and I'm coming around the wreath, and I'm going to attach that piece right into the base, and I'm just twisting off my wire to get it to attach to the wreath so it's staying. I'm a big advocate of, and then I'm just going to go through this, add some branches, a little bit of branches in there, and then just add more materials as I go all the way around. I'm going to be going all the way around, or at least I'm going to try, so we'll see how much material we get here. And once you get confident with this, we always recommend you kind of go back and forth, like a little bit of like a chevron. So some on the inside, some on the outside, adding those branches to the outside to get that nice extension that those branches will add. And yeah, that's pretty much the secrets of doing a wreath like this. I was just starting to say something there, and I can't remember what I was going to say.
Not sure.
It went right out of my head. But with every rotation, I'm going around the wreath about once or twice. We want to tug it at the end to make sure that everything's secure and staying in place. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm a big advocate of
Wiring things on.
Wiring things, yeah, instead of using a glue gun, because glue guns, they are not very friendly for your fingers. And another thing is I feel like they ruin your wreath, and also the material that you put on your wreath. Not only are they dangerous for your fingers, but they can be pretty just messy. You get these big globs of glue on your wreath instead of and your materials. And so this method with our wiring taping, and for some of my students out there, you guys have probably seen this technique many times. But this way you can just trim off your wires at the end, and you can use this wreath base in another fashion. And what I'm doing here, like if I find that the pieces are just a little bit too long, I'm just trimming them down so that they're a little bit more appropriate to put on the wreath. So even some of my cutting calculations there are maybe a little bit too long. But you want to keep these. You can see my thumb is always holding all this, and I'm coming about an inch closer to me. And this is like the south end of the wreath. This is the north end. This is the west end, and over here where my tools are, that's the east end. So and then I'm rolling that spool underneath, and I'm holding it with my thumb with every rotation. 1 or 2 twists rotations per per situation is great there. And then if you have any bulk that's starting to happen from your stems being too long, just go in there and trim that off. That's easy to do. Just kind of keep up with the bulk. Sometimes it gets a little unpleasant if you're working away here and it's like, ugh, you know, it's getting all chunky and weird here at the bottom. That's a good way to, and it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Can you make that out okay? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think that's looking good.
Yeah, okay, good. So, so now I've come about a quarter of the way. You can see, maybe Rob can kind of show you. I've got quite a bit here left. So I'm going to start bulking this up a little bit more. So in the way of grabbing like 3 or 4 stems per rotation. And like I was mentioning earlier, don't be afraid to kind of go to the inside and to the outside of that wreath when you're making that that bulk, because what that does is it makes the inside of your wreath nice and attractive as well. If we forget about this area here, you'll just end up seeing a little bit more grapevine in there, which is fine too. Yeah, so total we've got about 3 bunches of flowers here. So you'd need probably about 3 bunches of filler or so, and then a bunch of branches. And you could leave the branches out. You wouldn't have to necessarily do that as well. Perfect. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about what's going on at Petal Academy. So we have our March class is coming up over March break. So if you're looking for a fun activity to do with the Fam Jam, or even just for yourself, maybe you need a break from those kids over March break. I know, I'm looking forward to it. You can order the box. It's shipping on, I think is it March the 12th, I think?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, the 12th, because the class is the 13th. So usually we aim to ship the day before. Hopefully, if the weather's all good, that's what will end up happening. Always hard to know. But so that will be coming March the 13th. And then we also have our wreath kit, our spring wreath kit. I'm pretty excited about that one. I think we did a post about that. So if you're not on our email, go on over to our website and you can sign up for our emails, because you'll be getting those. We're really, with our year of thriving, we're really trying to get it together this year. And send out more regular emails just to let you guys all know what's going on in our little world of Petal Academy. So that email list will get you some insider information on what we've got coming up. But that'll also give you like the monthly boxes when we're doing them. But the spring wreath that we're doing, so we do a quarterly wreath subscription, but you don't have to subscribe. You can just order one at a time. It's a beautiful apple blossom wreath. Really gorgeous. So it's just apple blossoms on a gorgeous wreath. So similar to this, just kind of like all one flower, and it's going to be larger scale than this one, and with those gorgeous apple blossoms. So you can see how this is really coming together. It's looking pretty beautiful.
And it looks like we should be getting some better weather. It looks like we're going to get a bunch.
I know, it's
coming into the
yeah,
middle of March.
It's good. I'm going to turn these heaters off in here.
No more -20.
No more -20. That was a real interesting when we actually had Christmas up here this year, and that was an interesting challenge, wasn't it? Getting this room heated up. We had a whole bunch of folks here, and wanted to make sure we had this room available to use because it's a little bit chilly. Yeah, it's all good. So yeah, I'm just making I'm just grabbing all the little collections of the mimosa. And this, sometimes people will say, how do I dry flowers? Usually we recommend, if you want them to dry in a specific manner, hanging them upside down is a great way. So with an elastic and hanging them upside down was a great way to get them to sort of behave a little bit more. Like you can see that one was drying in the bucket, so it's a little bit squirrely. But that's a great way to navigate your stems. So bind them with an elastic and just hang them upside down, and they'll often dry a little bit more, with that sort of straight lines and things like that. That might be beneficial. But I would recommend doing a wreath like this with the product being fresh. and then it will just dry in place on that wreath, which makes it a lot easier to navigate. I find when you're working with dried specifically on wreath bases, it's very brittle and it can be a little frustrating to get material to behave, right? Just like this one, you know, that's a pretty bossy piece. So you kind of want to, if it's fresh, this one's already sort of started to dry, but if it's fresh, it's a little easier to manipulate and to get it to be where you want it to be on your wreath. Just adding a few more branches in there on the side. So I'm going around here. Whoops. Smells so good. So mimosa, yeah, so it also is fragrant. You can see on the table there all the pollen that it creates when it's fully bloomed, which is this one is. It smells very sweet, like, I don't know how I would describe it. If you like freesia, you would probably love it. It's a very sort of floral and, I don't know, just a lovely fragrance. I mean, it's probably not for everybody, but I enjoy it myself. So just a little side note there. So yeah, so our wreath kit's shipping. And then, yeah, like we were mentioning too, last time we were trying to take some information out there. So if you guys are new or you're just watching us, we were sort of contemplating. And these are going to be on our Instagram Live. So you'll be able to pull this up, hopefully this tutorial, if you decide to do this, and sort of walk your way through tackling this on your own, if you like as well. But we were asking the question last time around if we wanted to get into perhaps shipping some of these materials out midweek, and then you guys would be able to sort of join in if you like. And I know I'm going super fast, but like I said, this video will live on our Instagram, so you can revisit it if you need.
Thank you, Jackie. Saying how beautiful your wreath is.
Oh, good. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you guys are staying warm out there. Yeah, so we're going to think about that. And also, if you're interested in learning more design, we offer like our monthly classes. Again, you don't have to subscribe. You can buy one box at a time. Makes a great gift or a great activity for friends as well. We ship those out once a month. So those are a great way to sort of dive into floral design if you want to take your skills to the next level, sort of round out what you're doing a little bit better. We do all kinds of things. So people often ask us too, like, what do I learn if I'm doing Petal Academy per month? And so we walk through like something like this. So wreath making, vase arrangements. We do work with chicken wire quite a bit because that's my preferred method. But we do work with foam the odd time too. We want to give you guys that full scope of the industry. And we do work with some sustainable foam methods as well. So all the foam we particularly try to use is definitely the ones that have the biodegradable element to it. So I'm coming to the end here.
That's always the hard part.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. And then our time here today will be over too, which is sad. So what I'm doing is, you can see I'm pushing the original start of my wreath kind of off to the side here. I've got my hands kind of clasped around the wreath. So my spool is still attached. I'm going to try to come in as close as I can and sort of overlap this ever so slightly as I get into the end here. So I'm just taking that around, and sometimes you have to take your spool wire and kind of wiggle it through just a little bit. And like I said, like those little ends there, we might want to get rid of those at this point too. I'm taking some of those.
Welcome, Flossy Flower Truck.
Oh, cool. Thanks for watching. I'm just putting this all together. And it's looking amazing. So again, right when you get to the end there, you're going to take that spool wire, you're going to wiggle it through, just like so. So I'm wiggling it right through. And then you can see it pretty much closes that gap right there at the top, which is kind of what you want to do. And then you can scope in there, Rob, and show the table. So I pretty much used every single stem that I had, which is where you wanted to go with it. And that just kind of worked out really perfect. I was a little scared there for a minute. I'm going to share that with you. You never know if you're going to have like a ton of leftover. I've made a few of these, and that's probably always the scariest thing too, is like, how much do I need to buy? And like, am I going to have a ton of leftover? So let's just do the math there again. So we used 3 bunches of mimosa. We've got just three stems of that sweet huck. So let's close this off. So I've got my back. You can see the back of the wreath here. I've pulled that wire right through to the back, just like so. I'm just taking that. I'm going to grab my wire cutters. I'm actually going to trim it right off. And you guys are like, oh my gosh, she's crazy. So I just pulled that little spool wire off, and I'm going to flip my wreath over. What I'm going to do is I'm looking for a stem. It can be any branch. It could even be the wreath, but I like to take a stem, and then I take that excess wire and I wrap it right around one of my starter branches. And something fairly sturdy, and I'm coiling it around and around and around, because I want to tie this off literally just like that. So there we go. So that's our wreath. And you can take a little bit of your wire and you can use it as a hanger. I think I've got a couple pieces here that I picked up just from not getting into the wreath, but I'm going to shove those in there. You could take a little piece of that wire and create a hanger, or you can use, a lot of times I'll use and I'm shaking it there and you can see it's all nice and sturdy. You can use a chenille stem. A pipe cleaner is also a really good way. And I just go right around the wreath and make a little hook with those chenille stems a lot of times. But that's basically our gorgeous wreath. And I'll just pop it up here so you guys can see how that would look on a wall. But really gorgeous. And that will pretty much dry just as it is. So really, really nice. Could be like, it just sort of really does evoke a very spring-like flavor to it, but really fun. Could be put a little bird's nest in there with some eggs or something like that if you want to take it to the next level and make it very like springy, but I like it just like this. Anyway, hopefully that gives you guys some easy Sunday blooms and you'll be more fearless with flowers. Give this a try. If you have any questions, email us at info@petalacademy.com. We're happy to help you with anything. We love to share our passion. Thanks so much for tuning in today. And until next time, live life in full bloom. See you everybody.